All right, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Fall River Redevelopment Authority. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Open Meeting Law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. We are also aware that this meeting is being recorded by the Fall River Educational TV. At this time, I'd like to know whether or not those present can hear me clearly. If not, raise your hand. Okay, not seeing any hands. I'd like to start with a roll call. Joe Marshall, here.
Johnny Erickson here.
Joan Dearest here. Ann Keane here.
Louis Gonzalez here.
Okay, we have a guest.
Bill Kenny's back from my second tour of duty and the best job in the world, city planner for the Fall River.
That's an introduction.
John Coughlin.
John Coughlin.
Council.
And,
Sarah Page, Executive Director.
all right, thank you all. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the open session minutes from the September 16th and the September 30th meetings. Does anyone have do we have any discussion or additions, deletions, anything need to be discussed in the minutes? If I don't hear any, could I entertain a motion? John, second?
Second.
Second, John. All in favor? Roll call, please.
I'm in favor.
Luis?
Yes, Louis.
Luis Gonzalez.
Ann
Ann Keane.
yes. Joan Dearest, yes.
Johnny Erickson, yes.
Joe Marshall, yes. Okay, so moved. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the warrant and financial report. You should have that before you. Oh, you know what? I didn't even introduce Sarah. I should introduce Sarah. The newest member, and I'm remiss in doing that. Sarah Page, this is her very first meeting, not in the world, but this is her very first meeting with the Redevelopment Authority, and we're very pleased. We've already been working with her for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks. Very pleased to have you, and thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. All right, where was I? Oh, back to the warrants. Everyone had a chance to review the warrants?
Yes.
Any questions, any discussion? Any motion to approve?
Motion to approve the warrant as presented dated October 21st, 2020.
Second.
Second, Johnny Erickson. All in favor? Again, roll call. Joe Marshall, yes.
Louis Gonzalez, yes.
Ann Keane, yes.
Joan Dearest, yes.
Johnny Erickson, yes.
Thank you. So moved. Next item is our special guest, Mr. Well, he's already introduced himself. Mr. Bill Kenny, the City of Fall River's city planner. He's got a very exciting project that he would like to present to us, and he's got up to 10 minutes to do it, so that's that's good.
Well, I'm assuming you've all read the very detailed memo that I circulated, so all I have to do is ask for a vote.
There might be a couple more questions, I'm
All right,
not sure.
let me just tell you this, I didn't have to bring any exhibits with me, it's right there.
Yeah.
Okay? The goal we're talking
That's
about
right.
right out the back window here. This is the proposal for the request for the Redevelopment Authority to study the feasibility of decking that section of 195, which is between 3rd Street and 4th Street, to develop it for open space and parkland use, which would be a direct support for the goals that are in your urban renewal plan, which you are charged with enacting. I'm here tonight with Mayor Coogan's enthusiastic support to ask you to get involved in this. The Route 195 was blasted through here as part of the bad old days of urban renewal and destroyed the heart of the city. And for years, people were talking about reuniting and knitting back together the urban fabric at the north and the south ends of the city. The City Hall helped build that when they helped re-knit. But when they built this building, the urban mythology is that they also intended to have a parking deck on this section between 3rd and 4th Street, which was never built for whatever reasons. Funding, I guess, might have been part of it. The urban renewal plan that you're working with that was approved last August refers to this site and talks about the importance of more open space downtown, and specifically addresses the great deficiency in open space that you have in the core of the city, and talks about the great amenity that the parkland down here would have to attract residential development. And that's, in my view, and I think the view of that urban renewal plan, which I worked on, talks about, what are we going to do to revitalize and sustain downtown retail? You have a population in the downtown area with virtually no disposable income. You need a much better mix of residences downtown to support retail. One of the magnets to bring retail residential development downtown is open space and parkland. There have been over the years a number of urban myths about this site. Folks have said, well, you can't deck highways anymore. It's a security risk. Ever since 9/11, the federal government won't let you do that. And they've said, well, engineering-wise, it won't work. There aren't any structures there to support a deck. And then they say, the cost. Well, nobody's ever done a study with the cost. That's one myth busted. The engineering myth is a myth. The abutments are there because they were going to deck it. They were going to put something there. And finally, the security risk is blown out of the water. And we'll take a look at part of the materials that I gave you in November 2018 issue of Planning Magazine, showing several cities throughout the country that have successfully decked highways in their downtown areas for parkland. And lo and behold, July of this year, the Boston Globe talking about this Parcel 12 project in Boston, and 2 others, maybe 3 others, where plans are in the works and the ground has been broken in some cases to deck highways for open space and related purposes. So what I'm hoping is that you folks will undertake to fund the feasibility study, which would ask some very specific questions. I should say, by the way, that aside from this being part of your urban renewal plan, I've talked informally with planners in the region, and although they haven't had votes at their boards, so they can't take official positions, a lot of folks see this as a real signature event, signature possibility, transformative project for the downtown area. The issues that would be addressed by a feasibility study would be quite specific. We would want to know, we would want somebody to compile the true history of why this was never decked. We'd like to know if there are any state or federal policies that would be non-starters, that would say, no, you can't do these sorts of things anymore, and I think that's easily dispelled. Then we'd like to know what permits would be necessary. We have to get federal permits, we have to have state permits, are there environmental permits involved? Beyond that, if all of those hurdles are passed and it appears that it's feasible, then we might want to take a look at design. What could be done from a design and engineering point of view to deck this, and what might be the anticipated costs. And once you have all that, and to me it's very important to have that level of detail, because you never know when funding is going to arise. There's chatter that after the elections, maybe in the new year, the federal government will have a massive supply of funds to do infrastructure projects. You don't want to find that happening and say, gee, if we only had a plan, a shovel-ready plan, we could do it. And that's what this would be heading towards. Not the actual construction drawings, but finding out, is it feasible, can it be done? And then looking for what the funding sources might be. There are a couple of ways you might do this. You could put out an RFP. We could very specifically address the issues in the RFP as to what we wanted to learn. I could work on that with Sarah. Planning the project, you could look at me as an extra employee. I've done a lot of work with the Redevelopment Authority in the past. I'm happy to do it. I do only have one life to give to my city, but we'll do the best we can as long as we're standing. RFP, or you could have informal calls to engineering firms of the size that might be interested in putting together the appropriate team to address these issues. Whatever you think is best, I'm here to help you work on it. In the interest of full disclosure, I will say I also put an application in with the Community Preservation Committee to fund a study like this, but I'm not optimistic about that happening. They have 30 or 40 applications. I've myself put in several others on behalf of the planning department. They have about $1 million to work with, and the requests are over $5 million. And I don't think it's really the right route to go. This is your project. It's in the center of your urban renewal district, and it ought to be under your jurisdiction. And I think that the delay is also a problem. If you go through CPC, you're not even going to see $1 until maybe July of next year. I'm 69 years old, guys. I'd like to see some of these things moved along before my wife makes me retire. Did you hear that? So that's my pitch. I think it's a really exciting possibility. Just what is the feasibility? What are the obstacles that you would have to pass? What might it actually cost? Instead of talking in mythology, there's too much urban mythology in Fall River. I'd like to deal in some reality to the extent that we can. So, with that,
Well, I have a question. Yes, please. The land there, that's city land or state land?
well, that's a good question.
I thought so.
We believe that when this building was built, and John can correct me if I'm wrong, we did some research into this.
Okay.
I think we're sitting on a 99-year lease from the state,
All right.
and we're not entirely sure, maybe that section was part of that. So we may already have some rights to do something there, but that would be part of what the feasibility study would address.
Now, could the feasibility study, you alluded to it at the end, but also any monies available as a result of the investigation into
Well, I would like them to address
Yeah.
what possible funding sources might be.
that's right.
They would identify, grants that might be out there, federal or state, maybe some private funds would be available to help engineering, design work get done. It'd be nice if you could just pull out a book and say, oh yes, decking, here are the grants, but it takes a little time.
I understand.
As Sarah knows.
Yep.
What else can I do?
Bill, do we as a city, or I imagine this must have been like a DOT project or something? This whole structure here?
The building itself?
Well, I mean, where would we, how would we, or maybe already did go about getting the as-built drawings for what is there as a
I
substructure?
think the answer is the first call we have to make is to MassDOT.
Yes.
And that's them, dust off your records and show us your as-bills. They must have it. But again, that's part of, I would do these things myself, but there's only 24 hours in the day. But you're right.
But I mean, it should be easy for us to get hold of.
Yeah, you would think.
would think.
That would be the consulting, consultant would say, okay, MassDOT, tell us right now, is this something that is just ridiculous, that will never happen? Or, are there policies or regulations that just say you can't do it? And by the way, what have you got for plans? Let's see what you have in your engineering records. That was a start. So definitely would be involved in talking with those folks.
What year was this done?
70.
This building opened in 76 or 77.
It was like Frank
There's a
Stark.
plaque I could run
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
Is there a plaque there?
There's a lobby, there's a
Yeah,
great drink.
76.
Yeah, I think that's right, yeah.
I have two questions of you. Is your request to investigate the feasibility study, or do you have a range?
I forgot to tie that up. I honestly don't have much of a clue as to what this would cost. What I'm thinking is, put out an RFP or informal request.
Yeah.
It comes back, if it says, well, this feasibility will cost you, this study will cost you $1 gazillion, and then you guys would say, maybe next time, okay? Or it will come back, and they'll say, well, maybe you have 3 or 4 different proponents. One's 100,000, one's 75,000. You look at them, you take your pick, and you say, yeah, that's within the range that we can do. I don't know what your appetite for spending money is. I hope you're hungry. But I don't think this is a $1 gazillion thing. I think it's less than. How much less, I don't know, but find out, get some quotes in.
Yeah, good idea.
See what you can do. That answer your question?
It does. My second comment is more observational, is that the highway under it is federal, correct?
Do we know that, John? Do we know that?
I believe the state owns the land, but it's an interstate highway, so there's a lot of federal funds that go to pay
So
for it.
MassDOT would be in charge of maintaining it and repairing it.
With federal
and
funds.
Plowing the snow and that sort of thing.
But
They have a relationship.
the agreement for City Hall was a 99-year lease to construct this over the highway with the state. And it may have included that deck, we'd have to go back and look at those records.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Yep, it's same with Gramada Plaza in the front. This was
Yeah.
all a 99-year lease that hasn't, I think you said it has another, you can extend it. Didn't you see something that said, or you found something at the
Did you tell me
registry?
that, or did I tell you?
I think you told me that, but we'll figure that out. But
Yeah.
we're early in the 99 years right now.
Oh, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not worried about that. I've got another 30 to go, but I don't know how many years the lease has.
Yeah, and I think this would be design services, so
Yeah.
you're technically exempt from the bidding laws for design services for horizontal construction. Typically, you do a request for qualifications, you'd get like 3 different engineering firms, have them put in their qualifications, you negotiate a price with them. So if we're gonna do this, I think it's go out and get some quotes through that process and then come back and see how much is it gonna cost. You could also do it in stages, phases. You could ask a designer, phase 1, see if it's even feasible to do this. If it is, then, phase 2.
Go to phase 2.
Invest some money in doing a preliminary design and then look for funding. But you could do phases of this work too, so.
That's a good
Sure,
idea.
sure. Yeah, you don't have to go out and ask, how many trees are you going to have. I mean, frankly, Al Leva's already drawn three concept plans that will show you where every blade of grass is. But we don't have to get to that level of detail in the beginning. We can put that off for phase later on.
Well, if we followed John's approach, then we'd have to write the scope of work that would have to be done for each
Right.
one. I like the idea of the RFP, because that way we could get an idea of what the natural cost would be.
And I think
to do that.
even if we did a request for, it's called a request for qualifications in the designer world.
Okay.
So you could literally do a request for qualifications for the following work. You could do phases.
Okay.
They would submit a bid saying phase 1 would be X, phase 2, phase 3, and you wouldn't commit to spending it all until you got past each one of those
Alright.
phases. So
And we could stop at any time.
you could stop at any time. So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I just did a similar one, and I'm sure Ann's seen a ton of them with the state, but I just did one for like a fire police station one, where it was determine if the site's feasible, number 1. If it is, then design the building, number 2. Number 3, do the construction documents if we're gonna build it. So you can do it in phases, so. We could put something together, I think.
Good.
So would you suggest, John, in doing a request for qualifications, have us go through the qualifications and decide who's qualified? And then also with that request for qualifications, put in a fee proposal, or have an interview process and then do a fee proposal? or-
You could do it both ways. I'd probably
Right.
have them do the fee proposal
Yeah.
just to streamline it.
Yeah,
But you literally could do it both ways and then negotiate,
right.
depending on how quickly we wanted to get it done.
But usually with qualifications, you review the qualifications first without the fee proposal.
Yeah, you
and
don't look
then
at that, and then you get
until
down to
you've
negotiating, right?
Gone through the qualifications.
Right.
Good. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Can I go home now?
I guess. You must have 2 or 3 other things to do somewhere.
Well, I adopted a kitten a week ago.
Oh.
This is bonding time. I gotta go home and bond.
Yeah, I think Debbie's had her time already. hasn't
Yeah, I
she?
bonded with her instead of going.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Let me know what you decide.
Oh, sure.
Have a great evening.
All right.
So if you're gonna do something on that, it's your call.
Yeah.
It would probably just be a vote to, I think, direct Sarah to work with me and Bill or whatever to put together some kind of request for quotes or request for qualifications. We can kind of figure out the most streamlined way to do it.
Okay.
But you wouldn't be committing to spending any money until it came back at the next meeting, so.
Right, does everyone feel comfortable with that? Okay. All right, what John said.
Yep.
Is there a motion to do that?
Second.
Second? All in favor, roll call?
Louis Gonzalez?
Yes.
And Keane, yes.
Joan Maderos, yes.
Yes.
Joe Marshall, yes. Thank you. That was very good. We may find that there's something already ready to go, just never got done.
There may be. Bill had started to look at that
Yeah.
99-year lease, and I just hadn't had a chance to dig into it, so much stuff going on. But it's possible that lease covered from Gramada
Yeah.
Plaza all the way, because there's a parking area that the
I know,
city
they
uses to
park
park.
there.
So we do go from one end to the other. That gap, you can't explain it. Maybe there was just no funding, but it's already authorized, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think
But you know,
it's
that was
about-
in the 70s. The permits today, you know, we're gonna have to go through some process
I know.
to do it, so.
That's good.
Yep.
That's a good project.
But they do build these things over Mass Pike and everywhere else.
Yeah.
Oh,
So my
they
question
happen.
is,
Well, some of the.
couldn't they help walk us through it since it's already been done before?
We don't know if it, well, you
Instead
mean
of a
people?
Mass Pike, yeah.
People?
Yeah.
They could, and we may find the designer who's done the Mass Pike stuff. You may know, you know, if you have, we can look at that and
You
see.
know?
That'll be
That'll-
part of the process.
That'll make the
Right.
project faster as well.
Well, that'll be part of the process, I think.
You know, we could look at who designed some of those recent
Yeah.
changes.
MassDOT may have files for some of this.
They may. And some of those over
Did
the
he
Mass
give you a
Pike are not that
package?
old. I mean,
Did he
they've
give you a
done
package?
within the last 10 years, maybe, I don't know.
Well, the one right now that you mentioned, we happen to be involved in it, and I know one of the project managers.
Is that over the Mass Pike?
Yeah,
Yeah.
parcel 12, so
Wow.
back in the oil system.
Okay.
And I talked to him about this, and he said he'd be happy to help.
Okay.
You just mentioned trees, and I'm like,
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
You know,
Well,
what-
well, somebody already has a
Middle of
design.
downtown?
You start.
Well, they have a design for open space out there, but that would be like the final.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta do the decking first and
If we
everything
get the
else.
decking, that'd be superb, actually.
If they can find out who designed that project, that's really where we
Right.
are right now, Johnny. If you can find out,
yeah, it's much bigger.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Because whoever the design firm is, that's what we're looking for at this point. Not the construction.
I just
but the-
called him the other day.
Okay.
And I just wanted to work on it, so I can find out.
Good. All right, thank you. Oh, you have a question?
I just want to ask about the time frame. Someone mentioned bringing it back to the next meeting. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
That may be
whether-
optimistic. You know,
Okay.
whenever we get them, we'll
Who said
bring
that?
it back. So I said that.
Oh, okay.
He said that
I never expected that.
At a future meeting,
at a future
He
meeting.
meant future meeting.
whenever they're ready.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
okay.
No pressure.
You'll
So
go
a
back-
draft of the RFQ for us to review at a future meeting
Ah.
is the next task then?
Yeah, I guess
Is that
if
what
the
you're
board
saying?
wants to get in that detail, or just let Sarah, me, Bill put it out, and then come back to you with whatever the
Response.
the
Oh, yeah.
responses are. It's up to you, I don't care
Okay.
either way, so.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'd rather have some substance to look at.
Okay.
As opposed to
Yeah,
build it.
that
I
makes
don't want to
sense.
build it, I want to see it.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Is that decision that you would not see the RFQ, that it would be sent out before it goes to the board? Or are you saying the RFQ would come to the board?
I think we were saying not, but.
Not, okay.
No, like I say, we don't need to see the
Yeah.
actual building of the RFQ, just the results of it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Good.
think Bill probably has a pretty good handle
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
what he's
I know.
looking for.
I know. Okay. Number 5 is an update on the city pier project, which, is this the call to Joe? So-
No, we're gonna do that, we're
That's
gonna do
in-
that one in executive session.
Oh, I see. Okay, so the update is the review and potential vote on beta contract amendment, which we have in a kit here. So we should look at it, I think. You all got that, I guess, the copy of the amendment to, yeah.
Does anyone need a copy?
If you have an extra
Oh.
one. I did look at it online before the meeting.
Good idea. So there's 2 items to be considered.
Thank you.
The contract amendment with Beta. There were 2, you and I had spoken about that, Sarah. The reason for the modification, Johnny, you're probably aware of this too. There was a different scope of work that was necessary in order to, which is the reason for the amendment. So they needed we needed additional work on that. So that's noted, I think, inside of that draft.
Isn't the gravel testing, didn't she piggyback that on the gravel testing we just did?
Oh, I thought that was in the original.
That was in the original.
Yeah.
This is the
So
addition.
I thought this was more taking it to real design
It
and
is.
construction bid documents.
Yes, it is.
I can imagine there might be another amendment because this focuses quite a bit on the railing bidding.
I'm thinking out loud, but they may not even have the numbers yet, because we just got the test back, what was that, last week? On the gravel?
Last week.
A week and a half ago, so they probably don't have those numbers yet.
No, but I mean, we're just dealing with the amended contract as it stands now.
Right.
Who's to say there may be another?
So you're saying there may be other work that they'll find they need to do and they'll have to come back with another amendment?
Possibly.
Yeah, I don't think, they probably don't have the testing costs back yet, get the results,
All right.
but
So-
it's not a big thing, not a big item.
So we'll need a vote to
Authorize the chair to sign.
authorize the chair to sign an amended contract, correct? Is there,
I move we authorize Sarah to sign the amended contract.
No, I think
I have
he's,
to do it.
Oh, you have to do it?
Yeah, you can authorize
I
her.
thought you were
I
asking,
gotta do it.
you looked at me, so I thought you
Because I thought you were voting. I didn't know what you were going to say. So anyway, did you make that motion?
I did.
I heard that, yeah. Any second, please?
Second.
And all in favor, roll call, please, Steph?
Louis Condos in favor, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Ann Keane, yes.
Joan Maderas, yes.
Johnny Harrison, yes.
And Bill Marshall, yes. Okay, and then the other is review of the risk-based cleanup plan modification report prior to the submission to the EPA.
So,
I think
Mary
this-
Lou told me this afternoon that we should have that tomorrow.
Ah,
She wants us to just go through it, and then if we're cool with it, they'll get submitted, by the end of the week.
okay, so we don't really have that yet, so
No.
we'll overlook that.
well, I just thought we would want to make sure we knew the process of reviewing it.
Mhm. And the process would be, John?
So,
Well,
When we get it.
It's basically the language.
Right.
Okay.
They want to make sure that it's accurate
Okay.
of our intentions.
any decision points you think need to be made, or is it just confirming what?
It's basically just clarification.
So why don't, when it comes in, we'll have Joe, myself, Sarah will take a look at it. If we think there's a decision that the board needs to make, we can always bring it back. But
Yeah.
I think Beta's been given their instructions, so as long as it's consistent with what we've said before, I think
Yeah,
we'll
I
be
agree.
fine.
Yeah, we just don't have it right now.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right, number 6 on the agenda is an update on 45 Anawan Street project. We did receive the indoor testing results as a result of that. But we're going to talk about that in executive session.
Yeah, so I think in executive, we have the due diligence results, the title, the indoor
Right.
air testing. I think for the open session, it really is just an update that we
Well-
have. We have the signed PNS agreement.
That's right, with contingencies.
We're in due diligence period right
Yeah.
now, checking the contingencies, and the expectation is we would close next year if everything
Correct.
went according to plan.
Right.
But the two other matters we'll do in executive session.
Okay, good. All right with that? Number 7 would be a review of Mark Brown real estate agreement. For those, and maybe you were on the board at the time, Mark Brown is a realtor from the Boston area, has a contract with the RDA. I can just tell you, I've spoken to him twice since I've been on the board. We just recently got an executive director, and in both cases, he called me with a prospect who wanted to do a recycling place up there at the industrial park, which doesn't meet our covenants, which he should have known. And then the other piece is he spoke about, I can't be talking about other business people who may be interested, but it wasn't an appropriate tenant for our park. So if anybody else has any questions, I would hope that we have in our agreement with him a 30-day window to end our relationship with him, correct?
Correct.
John? So if we start that, and if anybody has any other discussion, if there's a motion to end our, now, we don't have anybody else in mind. We're just trying to get things moving with Sarah being involved. But I think we should end the agreement with Michael Brown and see where that takes us from there.
So the only issue that the board should be aware of, you have a 30-day right to terminate, but there is, in the agreement, there's a 12-month lag for closings, either at the end of the contract or at the end of the earlier termination, where you may still be on the hook for a commission. But that's true whether you end it now or you end it when it expires in January of 2022.
Right.
So you just have to be aware of that. We'll have to work.
So start now, but for the record too, that this board did not enter into that agreement.
Correct.
The agreement with the private board, but we have the responsibility to deal with that agreement. So that being said, is there a motion to notify him, give him the 30-day window to cancel the contract with him?
I move we proceed.
Okay.
Cancel the contract.
Okay.
Is that something formal?
Well,
I'll put together a letter
Yeah.
that Joe can send.
yeah, we'll do that. Is there a second to that motion, John's motion?
Second.
Second, John. All in favor, roll call, please.
Ms. Gonzalez, yes.
Yes.
Ann Keen, yes.
Joan Maderos, yes.
John Harrison, yes.
And Joe Marshall, yes, so that's unanimous. So if you would, John.
Yeah, I'll put
notify-
something together and
Yeah.
I'll call you tomorrow on
All
that.
right, that'll be good. All right, next item. Are we coming back into, no, we don't need to?
I don't
Okay.
think so, no.
All right, that being said, is there a motion to go into executive session as well as a motion to not go back into open session?
Yeah, and then first so we have the two reasons we're going to executive.
Yes.
One is the executive session minutes, and
Minutes.
the other one is the real estate exemption.
At 45 Anawan Street.
Correct. So we need a finding from the chair that having an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. So if you can make that finding.
I do.
And then we need a roll call vote to go into executive session for
session.
those two purposes and not to return to open session.
Okay. What John said. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Second motion, yes.
All right, second. All in favor, Luis?
Ms. Gonzalez, yes.
Ann Keen, yes.
Joan Maderos, yes.
John Harrison, yes.
And Joe Marshall, yes. Thank you, John.